You never know if a detachment is bad until you play it. And after playing it in 10th edition of 40k for 40 hours, I think I have a good grasp of it. For each of the Grotmas detachments, I have heard this is awful and this is overpowered on the same detachment. People have different metrics of good. Can a relatively new player put this on the table and have a high victory point score at the end of it? That is good. If it has flavor and lets you play with the army without skewing every list to the same units and enhancements, it is good. If it can win tournaments, that is another person's version of good. Not mine, but some people. 40k, the sport, is not my ideal way to play, but I can. Will Champions of Faith win a tournament? Maybe. If you know how to use Paragon Warsuits expertly, maybe. There are a few ways to play it. In this video, I'll be covering 3 different ways to play it. 3 big elements of this detachment that at the end I'm going to smush all together into some working army lists for you. I have tried lots of Battle Sisters to get many miracle dice from their simulacrum and their cherubs, which sort of give you more miracle dice. You need to perform an act of faith on the unit, not just discard a dice, but then you get another miracle dice. They can be made righteous with the detachment rule. In your command phase, you can discard up to 3 miracle dice. For every 1 discarded, one of your Adepta Sororitas units is righteous. They get +1 to move, they get +1 leadership, and if they are a Battle Sister Paragon Warsuit or Celestian Sacrosanct unit, they also improve their weapon skill and ballistic skill by 1. Then those Battle Sisters will be hitting on a 2+ with their assortment of weapons. Repentia are okay with the extra movement. This is Penitent Host, but other units work as well, not just a big focus on the Penitent units. Or you can do Warsuit focus. Warsuits without Val are okay at best. They need to be righteous if you plan to use stratagems. Forward planning is key to this detachment. Whenever you make a unit righteous, you are signaling to your opponent and reminding yourself, this is where the stratagems are going. This is the place I'm spending my command points. We will talk about other units like Celestian Sacrosancts in due course. Sister Aveline is a Sacrosanct, but gets nothing. Not because she has legends. The Deathwatch Index mentions legends as they are still part of the game. Hey, you can use Kill Team Cassius. It's still around. In a different place. But it would have been a nice way to enhance the flavor of the detachment to say, yeah, Sacrosancts, including Aveline, get bonuses. They could have brought back my Celestians with guns, but I won't talk about that this time. I will talk about Miracle Dice. We need Miracle Dice to pay the detachment rule tax. It does feel bad to have to use your resources to have permission to use more resources like command points. So you have to factor in additional ways of generating Miracle Dice, and we are currently, at the time of recording, existing in a Miracle Dice drought. In the December balance patch, Games Workshop reduced the amount of Miracle Dice that we have. You get 1 Miracle Dice at the start of each battle round, not at the start of each player turn. And you get 1 per phase at the end of any phase if any number of your Adepta Sororitas units were destroyed, not 1 per unit. Previously, if an immolator was destroyed in the enemy shooting phase, the unit inside is forced to disembark. If another enemy unit destroyed those, say, Retributors and Dialogus in the same shooting phase, that would give you 3 Miracle Dice, and you would get them immediately for the tank, the Retributors, and the character that were destroyed. Characters and bodyguard units split on death to activate death abilities. In the past, you could have used the Miracle Dice from the destroyed immolator to make a save on the Retributors as you got the Miracle Dice immediately. Now you wait until the end of the phase, and regardless of losing 3 units, you get 1 Miracle Dice. And I still discourage you from putting Retributors in an immolator. So it feels more difficult to get the same results, and several times in battle I needed 1 more hit to get a kill to remove a screen, or could really do with another Miracle Dice to succeed on a wound roll for a melter gun. Or I wanted to activate the Palatine's Rapturous Blows and couldn't, because the well was dry. It felt like hard work to try and get the Adepta Sororitas to operate at the same level as before. But this is not the end of all things. It isn't the Emperor is dead and all his saints are martyrs. It is another resource to manage along with command points and lives. A resource you must spend wisely. Remember that for the detachment rule, any unit can become righteous, and specific units, when righteous, also gain +1 weapon skill and ballistic skill. Separate to this and all of the time in this detachment, Celestian Sacrosancts have an additional objective control as long as they're not battle shocked. You don't have enough miracle dice for more than 1 or 2 righteous units at a time, and the occasional act of faith if you have a good dice. The extra movement inch is okay. The increased leadership is surprisingly valuable for resisting forced battle shock tests and so on. Leadership is surprisingly poor on Sisters units. Even Genestealer Cult are better, as their characters provide a better leadership to their unit. Almost all Sisters characters have the same 7+ leadership as their units, but the 3 specific units of Battle Sisters, Sacrosancts, and Paragon Warsuits like that improved ballistic skill and weapon skill. It is very easy to hit on a 2+, and this can stack with a +1 to hit that the Paragon Warsuits get when attacking enemy tanks and monsters, so that if that tank popped smoke for -1 to hit from stealth, your Warsuits will still hit on a 2+. Their normal weapon skill of 3+ is changed to weapon skill 2+. They then get -1 to hit, so they're hitting on a 3+, and then you get +1 to hit because of the special rule back to 2+. Because we need both miracle dice and command points, build them up at the start of the game and don't rush forward immediately. Save your strike for turn 3 if you can, assuming you go first, or turn 2 if the enemy is close enough. You spend the miracle dice to activate righteous in your command phase, so you can see what the situation is as you plan your coming turn. You do plan your turn, right? You do figure things out during your opponent's turn, don't you? If not, I don't think this is the detachment for you, regardless of how much you may love Paragon Warsuits. You need forward planning. You need lots of miracle dice. So here are some ways to get them besides dying and playing the game. Having a Battle Sister unit with a Simulacrum on an objective marker will generate more miracle dice on a 4+. Then you get the equivalent 4, 5, or a 6. Dominions and Novitiates have the same ability, but Battle Sisters can be made righteous with improved ballistic skill to hit on a 2+, so they can pull double duty of gathering miracle dice and fighting off enemy hordes. With Astrid and Agatha, those elite Battle Sisters can generate a miracle dice by destroying enemy units. And when old Agatha dies, you immediately get an additional D3 miracle dice. I assume you're taking more than Val. You will probably want to use Paragon Warsuits in this detachment, and you will probably have Val in a unit. So this is an obvious way, but Val has to get the last hit in for her ability to generate a miracle dice to work. If the other Warsuit models finish off the unit, you don't get a miracle dice. It has to be Val's attacks. The Triumph of St. Catherine no longer generates an additional miracle dice. It changes the miracle dice you get at the start of the battle round into a 6. It is useful to have for 2 more inches of movement and an additional inch to charges, but you have to consider the points you pay to get that. Unlike the Army of Faith, the enhancements don't let you get more miracle dice. They can help you generate more command points. Potentially with the Eye of the Oracle enhancement on a Canoness, you get precision. When you kill a character, doesn't matter how you kill the character, as long as the bearer's unit destroys an enemy character, you get a command point. A Palatine is an option for this, but as I understand it, any mortal wounds from rapturous blows don't get assigned like precision against characters, but you can shoot or smash your way through the bodyguard and then get the characters last. That is still destroying a character with your unit. You gain precision on all weapons. So an Inferno Pistol and a Blessed Blade Canoness is a good option. Mark of Devotion on a Palatine gives you extra attacks, which can translate into more mortal wounds, if you saved a miracle dice to activate rapturous blows. And you spent a miracle dice to make them righteous. The +1 damage is great for going up to damage 3. My Palatine cut her way through a Tyranid Warrior unit single-handedly with no additional mortal wounds required. If you know which enemy unit you're going to be able to attack, you will be able to decide whether you're saving a miracle dice for rapturous blows or for boosting the damage of your Palatine. Damage 3 makes Terminators quake, but you spend almost a Terminator worth of points to get the enhancement, and also spend more miracle dice to make it damage 3. Sanctified Amulet is a better choice. It keeps the enemy away. Stop them from ever trying any long charges from reserves, and make those into near impossible charges. Almost every faction has detachments that have a down and up stratagem, or a way to come in 6 inches away instead of 9 inches. Pushing them back to 12 inches takes precedence. A lone Dialogus near your home objective may be the best place for this. The Triptych of Judgment is a way of ignoring modifiers to technically, sort of, be +1 to hit in some circumstances. If the enemy would be -1 to hit, your unit ignores it and doesn't need to be righteous. Most of these modifiers come to your shooting instead of combat attacks, so it isn't worth much on a character with the Sacrosancts. There are no non-epic heroes that can join Paragon Warsuits, so it will go on a character in a Battle Sister or a Dominion squad. If you have the spare points, take other enhancements, put the Sanctified Amulet on any character, then if there are still points to spare, take this. Or if you know the enemy is big on stealthy recruits that your Battle Sisters would be perfect to shoot down, take the Triptych of Judgment. Of all the stratagems, while there are general use stratagems, the stratagems want to be used on righteous units. Suffer Not the Unfaithful requires you to be righteous to use it, and it is one of the better stratagems. Gain sustained hits or lethal hits. Lethal hits if it is hard to wound the enemy on a 5 or a 6, so most of our units attacking most enemy units, but choose sustained hits for Paragon Warsuits. You already have +1 to hit and wound versus monsters and vehicles, so lethals against those tough targets are not as needed as more attacks. That will send the enemy to the Go Emperor, whoever that is. To the Heart of Heresy gives any unit +1 strength in the fight phase, but that important extra armor penetration is only if you are righteous. It's mainly for Celestian Sacrosanct so that their mauls go from strength 4 to strength 5. I tried it on Battle Sisters for a giggle, but there's no real difference. It was never going to be when you have 1 attack. If the extra strength would give you essentially +1 to wound, use it on a dedicated combat unit. If they happen to be righteous, the extra AP is valuable. If you wanted a stratagem to gain an extra armor penetration, you've come in the wrong door and want the Army of Faith instead of the Champions of Faith. I wasn't making a unit righteous in preparation for using this stratagem. It is no Suffer Not the Unfaithful. But Celestian Sacrosancts like it. The Celestian Sacrosanct's own stratagem for them, only them, and no one else is... Bastion of Faith is an option. -1 to be hit, but only in the fight phase. Bullets hit you all the same. It can affect 2 Celestian Sacrosanct units if they're close together, but mine weren't. I will tell you more in the Celestian Sacrosanct and Battle Sisters section. With the Adepta Sororitas units we have, the toughness 3 means we drop easily. If Paragon Warsuits could be -1 to hit, let's go! But I prefer to cause more damage to reduce the enemy ability to hurt us. Offense is the best defense, not conditional defense. So Shield of Denial is a 6+ feel no pain, but only against mortal wounds. That is really bad and really situational to where you would take enough mortal wounds to consider using it, but if you are righteous at the time, it is a 5+ feel no pain. You don't make a unit righteous to use this stratagem. In my 40-ish hours of playing this attachment, I never used it. There were times I could have, times when an average roll would be just enough to save a Paragon Warsuit model. But I didn't because I may roll badly and I feel I had wasted a command point that could have been spent on other things. Path of the Righteous is more offense. You can get more models into engagement range, or you can operate with tag teams, where one unit removes a screen and then a dedicated combat unit like Archoflagellants, Repentia, or Paragon Warsuits pile into a new enemy after the one that they charged was destroyed. It's a tactic that I used well in the Biosanctic Brood Surge of the Genestealer cult, and it would have worked perfectly here too if it wasn't for that meddling Games Workshop reducing our Miracle Dice so I didn't have a Miracle Dice to trigger my Palatine's Rapturous Blows and 2 Termagants Live to stop my Repentia piling into Tyranid Warriors 6 inches away and cutting them to bits. At least the stratagem doesn't require you to be righteous. So maybe it sounds weird, but my favourite stratagem is Indefatigable Dedication. Movement is so important. A unit can be righteous, but you don't need to be to use this stratagem. Seraphim, fall back, shoot, and then move again because of their unit ability. Battle Sisters fall back and shoot with more than their bolt pistols. Paragon Warsuits essentially get their index unit card ability back. And as they are a unit you will often be choosing to make righteous, they will fall back, shoot, and charge. Great for pushing past enemy screening units into what you want to kill. Monsters and vehicles. We know that the big winners of this detachment are the Paragon Warsuits, but I have 3 ways to play this attachment with a different focus each time. All of them work? Some work better than others. Paragon Warsuits. Do you want to use a Miracle Dice? Is it on Paragon Warsuits? If not, don't do it. This is the Paragon Warsuit logic loop. Always have Morven Val and her suits righteous. It's optional on turn 1. But any Miracle Dice from Simulacrums or dead units is for a second Paragon Warsuit to become righteous. Paragon Warsuits. Don't bother with Sacrosancts. They die easily and need to be righteous to be better. There are no dice for the Hospitaller. That needs a Miracle Dice to bring back more than 1 model. No Palatine. Mark of Devotion requires you to be righteous, and the Palatine's Rapturous Blows need miracle dice. Your mother calls. You do not answer because she is not a Paragon Warsuit. High miracle dice can be damage rolls for Warsuit multi-melters, as Val doesn't let them reroll damage. But that is it. Cold, brutal logic, worthy of the AdMech. Played this way, it is very simple and rewards you for focusing on one of the most dangerous Adepta Sororitas units. One unit of Warsuits is strong. Another unit alongside is a spearhead to crush the enemy. Val and Warsuits are a strong but expensive combination in any detachment, but with sustained hits, they get so much better. When Val is with the Paragon Warsuits, they share keywords, but the detachment bonus to improve ballistic skill and weapon skill is only for Paragon Warsuit models. Val already hits on a 2+, so isn't too bothered. They are hunting monsters and vehicles. 10th edition often has their toughness higher than our strength, so you're wounding on 5+. More than Val, letting you reroll all hit rolls and all wound rolls gives you a unit that can deal with those monsters and vehicles. And you get +1 to hit and wound against those vehicles and monsters. It's almost like it's trying to tell you something. What is their target? Yeah, you get it. The unit wants multi-melters, they are the most likely to wound and have the highest damage to get through the many wounds of the large creatures of the enemy. The Paragon grenade launchers have the highest strength and do the most damage. We don't want storm bolters that would be wounding on 6s. And I would take a mix of swords and mauls to jump between profiles, leaving an option for Val to stab between the swords and the maul and finish off the enemy unit to generate a miracle dice. Adept Roll is the best tool to figure out what you can kill with Val in the suits, and on average, if they need to use stratagems for sustained hits. It is more than a calculator app that figures out rolls. You can include all the bonuses that Val and the Triumvirate get to be factored in, rerolling hit rolls, or the option to fish for 6s and reroll all hit rolls that are not a 6. There is reroll wound rolls, but on the app it is called Twin Linked because Twin Link does the same thing. Then it tells you the odds of destroying the target in one go. Some people insist, never tell me the odds. But maybe you want to know the odds before you get to a game ready to do something stupid that won't pay off. Because Val and the Warsuits can't survive concentrated attacks against them. More than Val and her 3 Paragon Warsuits are a unit to deploy on the table last, once you can see where the enemy is, and they go for the biggest things. Stay safe until then. This is a counterpunch detachment, not a rush in and murder them detachment. That is a way to do it. I don't like it so much because I don't like Paragon Warsuits. I don't like the look of the proportions of the models. I don't like building them or painting them. We had walkers, penitent engines. We didn't need another. But this is what the detachment wants. It is what many of you like. Paragon Warsuits are popular. Maybe the damage output on the table rather than the models themselves. If you want those models, I have affiliates linked in the description where you can get Paragon Warsuits discounted compared to buying from Games Workshop. And this supports the channel at the same time. So how else can we make the detachment work without obsessing over Paragon Warsuits? Have I mentioned 60 Battle Sisters before? Lots of Battle Sisters generate the miracle dice, and you can consider using those miracle dice on themselves to make them righteous. The choice to have +1 to hit on a squad honestly feels better than having a damaged squad of sisters in Hallowed Martyrs to get the same +1 to hit, assuming your unit wasn't smashed to pieces so that there's barely anyone left to get those bonuses. Or was just wiped out. Celestian Sacrosancts can deal decent damage if they're with a Canoness or a Palatine. In this style of playing Champions of the Faith, we can have a Palatine with the Mark of Devotion enhancement to be righteous. I have Sacrosancts with Halberds, which have sustained hits, which goes with a Palatine, giving the unit lethal hits. So I didn't use Suffer Not the Unfaithful on them, because they have both options already. But if you had the Mauls or no Palatine, that is a stratagem to use. Instead, I use the stratagem to the Heart of Heresy to get bonus strength and armor penetration if righteous. The -1 to hit stratagem is okay, but there are a lot of enemies that get +1 to hit or reroll hit rolls, so the -1 is either mitigated or becomes irrelevant. And it would be most useful on a horde of things like Hormigants that are hitting on a 4+ that goes to 5+. Sacrosancts are still very fragile Battle Sisters, without long-range guns. They desperately need their shields to give them 2 wounds. A 4+ invulnerable save doesn't do that much. They have no real staying power over regular Battle Sisters. You can add a Hospitaller to the unit. The unit ability of -1 to be wounded is now in effect, but you need more miracle dice to bring back more Sacrosancts. I prefer upping the damage output. A Canoness can make stratagems 1 command point fewer, but you have to remember to make them righteous before you use many of these stratagems. And I don't think Sacrosancts compare well to Battle Sisters. Battle Sisters have a simulacrum, have sticky objectives, have objective control too in every detachment instead of just this one. Sacrosancts are more expensive and die at about the same rate. So a Rhino transport, or arriving from strategic reserves with rapid ingress, is the way to get the Sacrosancts on the table. I had one unit only in the army. I had different damage dealers, even with Sister Horde. Astrid and Agatha with Storm Bolter Dominions, and a Hand Flamer on the Dominion Superior to have more shots. Astrid and Agatha give the unit devastating wounds, so the more shots you have, the more devastating wounds you can get. You get lots of shots at short range. And Storm Bolters are damage too, instantly killing Chaos Space Marines. Flamers are an alternative, but have shorter range and random shots. But that is a good option for Overwatch, now with devastating wounds. Killing an enemy unit generates you a miracle dice and you get another D3 on the death of Agatha. Make the unit righteous with a miracle dice. +1 movement is okay, you get a 5+ leadership, and then you can use Suffer Not the Unfaithful for sustained hits. More shots can mean more devastating wounds. In this detachment, Righteous Battle Sisters are a different good choice. Fewer shots as you are limited to 1 Stormbolter, but the unit would be hitting on a 2+. If you want to figure out the best weapons and what you can kill, remember that Adept Roll exists. Version 3 of how to play this detachment is Penitent Host, but with friends. We still include Morven Val and the Paragon Warsuits, which is good power in all detachments, including the Penitent Host. But the Repentia and the Warsuits, either unit is a good backup to become righteous and deal damage. This is a combat detachment. Look at all the stratagems. They're very combat focused. But we're not limited to penitent units, because any unit can be righteous. So playing it this way, you ask questions like, what about the Repentia? Are the Repentia charging? Why aren't the Repentia charging? Is it viable for me to charge with the Repentia this turn? When they are made righteous, they move 8 inches, and with Suffer Not the Unfaithful, they have sustained hits and lethal hits because they already have sustained hits on their weapons. And the Superior gives them rerolls to hit to try and generate more attacks. Repentia are pointed better than Sacrosancts. Yes, it's more points for the Repentia than Sacrosancts, but when the Repentia hit, they get through the enemy unit. Sacrosancts are not usually a great direct damage unit, even if they are made to be righteous and hit on 2+. Even if you have reroll 1s because of a Canoness with a Rod of Office, or have lethal hits and sustained hits because of the Palatine. Repentia do more damage with higher strength attacks, and as soon as you are adding a character to Sacrosancts, Repentia are the cheaper option. I tried both in the same army. The Repentia did better, even at the cost of miracle dice and command points to activate them fully. A unit of 10 and a unit of 5 is the most I would include. A unit of 5 can be pushed to perform way better, a unit of 10 can bring down a Chaos Knight. I got more out of them than I should, due to luck. Bad Overwatch from a Neurotyrant firing 2 shots instead of an average 7 gave me a big kill I didn't deserve. And bad placement of Chaos Knights and accidentally harvesting their whole cultist screen, yeah, these games were mainly against other Grotmas detachments. That gave me another lucky break. The Emperor provides, for me, but you can't rely on it. The Penitent Host is the Repentia home, but as a supporting unit for other Adepta Sororitas instead of the main focus, they work in the Champions of Faith. Path of the Righteous is a big pile-in move to get more of the Eviscerators in range to strike. More armor penetration and strength are available by going to the Heart of Heresy. There are loads of tools here to make them work however you need them to. Repentia like to set up and prepare to counterattack the enemy. This detachment suits their playstyle. Archoflagellants are another penitent unit to consider alongside Repentia for the same reasons. Make them righteous, they move 8 inches, go to the Heart of Heresy for strength 6, and importantly -1 AP, and flens some Orc hordes after activating the Extremist trigger word. Wound those Orcs on a 3+, or if people are bringing their guard off their shelf for the new Codex, destroy a 25-man platoon squad by wounding them on a 2+. Okay. If you want to get used to an army or detachment quickly, play 1000 points. You have to focus on the core of the detachment, and you get used to what the force can do and learn what your options are for stratagems and enhancements, without also having to constantly remember lots of unit abilities for your own and your opponent's army. And the games are quicker. But I have also played larger games. So from all of that playtesting, what do I think of this detachment? It stretches our recently thinned miracle dice even thinner, and it is not forgiving if you forget to make a unit righteous, or you make a unit righteous and essentially waste a miracle dice by failing the charge roll, or you didn't actually need to make them righteous. Keeping a high miracle dice to succeed in a charge roll is better than being righteous. You do less damage, but if you aren't in combat, you do no damage. As you play the detachment more, you get better with it. If you like the theme, please stick with it for more than one game. You can get the best results for your first games, and potentially all of your games, with the Paragon Warsuit logic loop. Don't care about other units in your army until the Paragon Warsuits are lost. It is much harder to play this detachment without Warsuits. I think you could guess that already. So what did we learn? Take Paragon Warsuits. Morven Val and her 3 attendants are staples in every detachment, but their power is dialed up to 11 in this detachment. Because the Paragon Warsuits are so good here, I can't see their points coming down, even if Morven Val's were to go up. For the difficulty in Miracle Dice recovery, and many of the stratagems being like Army of Faith stratagems but with more conditions, I prefer the Army of Faith. It is personal preference, but I like my Warsuits to be in a supporting anti-tank role, not the main event. But Hallowed Martyrs can be a better choice for combat infantry like the Sacrosants and some Repentia or some Arcoflagellants. The Hallowed Martyrs has Righteous Vengeance and Spirit of the Martyr. So here are 2 final army lists combining all 3 of the main elements I've talked about. Here's the 1000 point army and read out in case you're not watching the screen. Morven Val with 3 Paragon Warsuits, a Palatine with Mark of Devotion, 5 Celestine Sacrosants, a Dialogus with the Sanctified Amulet, 2 lots of 10 Battle Sisters, 5 Repentia, and 5 Seraphim. This army list gives you a bit of everything, and importantly gives you a lot of threads to pull on as and when you need to in regards to Righteous. The Dialogus stays alone on the home objective with a bubble of no deep strike allowed within 12 inches. That deters or prevents most enemies from getting to her. The Seraphim can deep strike on the opposite side of the board or generally move fast. The Paragon Warsuits and Val may be able to destroy anything they come up against in a 1000 point list, without ever needing to use stratagems or be righteous. Great if so, then the Repentia and the Sacrosants or Battle Sisters can be righteous. There is flexibility. You can save up those miracle dice to guide the Palatine into 3 wound enemies and trigger both righteous and her rapturous blows. The Sacrosants are there to support the Palatine, not the other way around. If they take an objective, OC2 will help a little to stop them being out-muscled by neophytes, but they won't stand up to the bullets of neophytes, and then the objective is lost regardless. Remember how we don't take the Dog Martyr because +1 objective control isn't worth that much? The same thought applies here. The Sacrosants, by which I mean the Palatine and a bodyguard, clear objectives for the Battle Sisters to hold and generate more miracle dice. The Sisters are more precious than the Sacrosants. Some of you like Sacrosants. I never had. And not because they remind me of losing Celestians with guns at the start of the edition. In 9th edition, I wrote to Games Workshop requesting Celestians with combat weapons. It seemed like a natural progression. Not as a replacement. Battle Sisters can do it better. Bear with me on this. I tried this list by having the Sacrosants sit on the home objective alone as the cheapest unit and putting their objective control 2 to use. If you don't have the points for an Immolator to split a Battle Sister squad, this is a cheap option in this detachment. Otherwise I would use Arcoflagellants or Crusaders. You still can. Then the Palatine led a sister squad and the Dialogus led the other sister squad. The sisters screened for the Repentia, and the lethal hits of the Palatine still helped the sisters. Using indefatigable dedication, the sisters were able to fall back, shoot, and because they were righteous, charge back in, and the Palatine has higher damage and more attacks as a side effect of being righteous. It is a nice combo. The Dialogus with sisters lets them turn any miracle dice into a 6. Wound rolls and damage rolls especially, but also hit rolls on Overwatch. Another option, but not the priority for miracle dice. Carrying the Sanctified Amulet projects an area that enemies cannot deploy near, and it means your Seraphim always have a safe place to drop in. Val still smashes whatever Val wants to smash. But there are options both on character placement and where you throw your miracle dice. It gives all 3 of the elements I talked about in one. The 2000 points army list has more damage dealing units, as you would expect for a larger sized game. Not all of them require you to be righteous, and we will be focusing on the Paragon Warsuits. The army list has Morven Val and 3 Paragon Warsuits, and another squad of 3 Paragon Warsuits. There is a Canoness with the Eyes of the Oracle enhancement, who has 10 Sacrosants and a Rhino. Astrid and Agatha are present, with 10 Dominions, and the Dominions have Stormbolters. There are 3 squads of 10 Battle Sisters, 3 Archoflagellants, 10 Repentia, another Rhino, and 2 Armiger Warglaves. The Paragon Warsuits are the righteous units. The unit of 10 Repentia is another potentially righteous unit. You may need a Rhino for them if you expect the terrain to be open, and any buildings have these fancy things called windows. The 10 Sacrosants are there as another potentially righteous unit. Astrid and Agatha could be with the Sacrosants, and then the sustained hit halberds get devastating wounds. Combat is more this detachment style. Or you could choose the Mauls, which are damage 2, and you're able to increase their strength in this detachment. Devastating wounds on damage 2 weapons is good. Halberds are also an option, as 6s to hit generate more hits that could potentially become more mortal wounds. I have Astrid and Agatha with Dominions with Stormbolters. Their kills generate miracle dice. The Canoness with the Eyes of the Oracle and Sacrosant destroy character units to generate more command points. And I use Mauls. I use Halberds if they're with a Palatine, otherwise the higher damage Mauls come into effect more. And we can get sustained hits as well in this detachment with Righteous and Suffer Not the Unfaithful stratagem. Although this is 2000 points, there is still only one Sacrosant unit, because there is a limit on the number of units that can be Righteous, and that limit will be further capped by the amount of miracle dice you have available. A Rhino gets the Sacrosants further up the table in safety, or you could use Rapid Ingress and have the Repentia in the Rhino. Either way, remember that you can charge through ruins from one side to the other, and by doing so, the enemy cannot overwatch you because they cannot see you when you declared the charge. We use Rhinos because Astrid and Agatha can't fit in an Immolator because they are 2 models, and adding them to a unit of 5 makes a unit of 7, which won't fit the 6 spaces of the Immolator. Remember that you add characters after splitting a unit into 2 completely separate units. So that's why we have Rhinos. The Dominions have Stormbolters for the short-range fire. They could be in a Rhino and get out and shoot. But they are an attacking unit that doesn't have as great a need for the Rhinos, as their Bolters and Stormbolters have Assault so that they can advance and shoot. And 4 of the models carrying Bolters are wounds that can be lost without significantly reducing the damage output. But Von Carmian, if you have Repentia coming on from reserves, why do you need 2 Rhinos? And a Rhino is currently the same cost as 5 Sacrosants, so why not 5 more Sacrosants to hold objectives? Because Sacrosants without a character don't have that -1 to be wounded ability. They are 5 expensive Battle Sisters with no Simulacrum or Melter Guns. If I didn't have a second Rhino model, I would take a Penitent engine as a distraction for the same points over more Sacrosants. The 3 Archoflagellants sit on the home objective, but we start a Battle Sister squad there to make it sticky with Defenders of the Faith. Then it is ours until it is taken. If you have to do recover data in 3 areas, or be in different table quarters, the Archoflagellants are a unit in your backfield to do just that. And having any unit there gives a 9-inch area that the enemy cannot deep strike straight into, like landing on your home objective. Some players use Junith Eruita, but in this list we already have a Canoness generating command points, and you can't get more than 1 command point per battle round. Many people may pick Castigators. Armigers are better. They're cheaper. And this is a combat detachment. The extra armor penetration in shooting is not worth paying 30 points more over the cost of an armiger. This army list isn't big on shooting. There are the Dominions, but they rely on devastating wounds. The Warsuits have AP -4 melters already, and the Battle Sisters shooting is a little extra, not the focus of the army. But points change. Double check if you are looking into this after March 2025. But the armigers give real melter, and they're a damage dealer that doesn't need miracle dice or being righteous to be effective. It's a good army list that can deal with a lot of enemies and does a lot of killing, overtaking objectives, but the Battle Sisters are there to hold objectives. Looking at the Champions of Faith, I am wondering if this detachment is part of a move to miracle points. You get points and spend them on extra cool abilities like Righteous, like the Palatine's Rapturous Blows. I can see Games Workshop throwing that out in March and people saying, oh good, at least it's better than this lamed miracle dice system. We know that they're mostly dropping fate dice from the Eldar Codex. There could be a trend. Any unit that can spend a miracle point to get something gets changed. A Dialogus' ability would be changing any hit roll, wound roll, or damage roll to a 6 for a miracle point. Maybe in 11th edition. That will be announced in spring of 2026. In the now timeline, are sisters worth playing? Yes. 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 If Games Workshop is going to think about 40k like a live service computer game like Overwatch, as in an online game that is constantly updated, I have to think about it in the same way. If a character I use a lot changes, I can keep playing them because I'm good at playing them. I don't switch to the temporarily overpowered French woman even if I am a good sniper. Or perhaps I swapped my second main for a bit, the Gene Stealer cult. But the Adepta Sororitas will go on. Our units are still very good. We have Crusade rules that can give us an extra boost. They're still very valuable, but it's something else you need to store up Miracle Dice for a once per game push. A really good once per game push. But not in the Champions of Faith detachment where you need the Miracle Dice to activate the detachment. Champions of Faith does feel like Army of Faith, but without the Miracle Dice extra you get from playing the detachment. So for the overall meta, is the Army of Faith a useful replacement for Miracle Dice or not? There are a lot of ways to go, and people are returning to the Hallowed Martyrs. We are not dead as a faction, not even asleep for 3+ months. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.